Presented from the Aishin Broadcast Studio at Babcock's Media.
Hey everyone, welcome to Aftermarket News. I'm your host, Jason Morgan, Executive Content Director at Babcock's Media. And today we're talking about growing the next generation of aftermarket leaders. And my guest is James Adell, Director of Corporate Education at the University of the Aftermarket, Northwood University. James, great to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So you run numerous events, lots of different training. There are two specifically I really want to dive into here, one of which is Aftermarket 101. Can you just give me a quick overview of what that program is?
Aftermarket 101 is a 2-day crash course for professionals that are either new to the industry or maybe in a new role that they're looking for some additional industry information in that new role. And that could look like any number of things. Maybe it's a recent graduate that's just hired at your company. Or maybe it's that accounting professional or engineer or some professional that's worked for many years in a different industry and has never been in the aftermarket. And so they don't really understand how the aftermarket works, who the players are, the terms and terminology. And we just have our own lingo. We have our own vernacular lexicon almost. It's like slang that is so different than many other industries. So Aftermarket 101 is a 2-day crash course. It's a high-level overview of just how the industry works, who's in it. And like I said, it's targeted towards those who are looking for a little deeper information on the industry. We've even had people from organizations that maybe were long-term organizations in the light duty side of the aftermarket, but they're entering the heavy duty side, or vice versa. They've been in heavy duty and they're entering light duty. And so they want to see the opposite side of the industry. And they'll come through just for a brush up or for a little deeper insight. So it's that type of professional that is looking for a better understanding of the industry.
Right, for sure. Man, I mean, I got to say, even just being in it every day, I feel like I go through a crash course 101 every day, given all the changes that are going on, the evolution that's going on. But from your seat, when you're taking folks through this, what are some of either the common misconceptions or misnomers that they bring to the course that you have to kind of change the hearts and minds on?
For Aftermarket 101 specifically, I find that often a big segment of the folks that don't come with any conception at all. They don't know what aftermarket means. When we talk to the general public and we say automotive aftermarket or motor vehicle aftermarket or commercial vehicle aftermarket or performance aftermarket, they look at us with blank stares, they gloss over, they just have no perception of what an aftermarket is.
Right.
They know where they buy the car, they know what a dealer does, they know what the OEMs do, but then after that, they just think it's their hometown repair shop, and they never think about the industry that makes sure when they drive their vehicle into that repair shop, they can get brakes, tie rods, ball joints delivered within 30 minutes to an hour. The supply chain is amazing in the aftermarket that we don't know what you're driving. We don't know where you're at. We're not tracking you, but yet you can drive in almost anywhere and get the most common parts within 30 minutes to an hour. So our folks come to us without any kind of conception. It's that blank slate almost. And so we have to inform them, what is an aftermarket? What does that even mean? And then how does all of this work? And so it's a fun journey. It's different than if they had come with some preconceived notion that's entirely wrong. But it is a dive into a world that they've never considered, they've never really thought about in the past. And now we're opening up this whole new adventure for them to better understand and think through how does all of this work together. And really, what is their role in the industry? How does their company, their job position integrally integrated into the industry? And how do they provide value? Because every one of those professionals that come is adding to the industry somehow, but it's hoping to enlighten them about where their place in the industry is and how they are providing value.
For sure. I mean, it's interesting. Even before I came to the industry, I mean, my answer probably was magic. That's how it happens. I get my car fixed same day, probably by magic. But there's this complex web behind that machine that makes that possible. And we're kind of on this on-demand generation, right? I mean, you kind of alluded to it We all have our phones. We hit the buttons. Things happen almost instantaneously. The aftermarket's been doing that since before we had phones, before technology, but all of that data, all of that digitization, digital solutions, it's all becoming more complex and integrating itself into their aftermarket as well. How does that change what you teach folks when you take them through what the aftermarket is?
It certainly has guided some of the conversations that we've had. In recent years, we've added conversations and sessions into our coursework, not just Aftermarket 101, not just Leadership 2.0, but a number of different courses. We've added conversations about data management. And we take that in a number of different ways. We certainly talk about ACEs and PIs in the catalog standards, what that means, why do we need a catalog standard, how that impacts the industry. We tie it into e-commerce. I'll take a little sidebar here and talk about our academic courses on campus. We have a number of students who are highly interested in e-commerce, and that is a track within our marketing department. Yet our students don't always think about, well, how does e-commerce happen? And how would that happen in an industry like automotive? Well, it's data, it's standards, it's all of these technologies that are coming out. They just know that they want to sell stuff online and they think it's really cool and exciting. And it is, but the aftermarket is doing that. And it takes a whole range of skills to make that happen. So in our professional development courses, we're certainly talking about ACEs and PIs, catalog standards. We have a whole separate class just on aftermarket data standards and the ACEs and PIs for those who are pursuing their ACP designation. But we also bring in professionals from the industry to talk about data as your competitive advantage. And we'll bring in folks that are well-known, highly visible, that talk about how do you manage data and what data is important and what do you do with the data, and beyond just the cataloging side of it. We've brought in AI speakers to talk about that. One of our speakers is interesting because he says, whether you know it or not, your company is a digital company and you're producing data all the time that you should be capturing because you can monetize that data somehow. But most of our companies, or many of our companies, aren't thinking in terms of what data am I creating regularly and how is that data important and could it be monetized? Those conversations are always insightful, and folks who are not in depth in their current role in those categories often will walk away saying, I never really thought about everything that's required to go in on the data and technology side in order for me to do my role or my colleagues to do their roles. It's just so involved in integral to what we do. So we certainly are adding more and more of that content.
Right, yeah. Well, and I do want to touch on that too, because you mentioned the Northwood University programs, great for students too, but it can be, correct me if I'm wrong, employee benefits, right? Or developmental, I mean, this is for any aftermarket company that wants to stay on the forefront of what's going on. These are continuing to develop leaders, industry professionals on those things so that this is something you can look to. You got a rising star at your company, or even yourself, you want to go and educate yourself. You run programs that you can join up and go get educated on.
Certainly, we don't only provide the professional development courses and the University of the Aftermarket courses that I lead. We do have academic programs. That's the core of what Northwood University does. Companies can use either the professional development or the academic courses to accomplish employee development. It's interesting, Gallup just had a latest workforce research survey. And in their survey, they said 59% of chief human resource officers identified employee development as their most challenging area. That number was up, by the way, from 2024 by 16%. So the net result of that is that there's a gap between what the workforce is currently doing and what the business wants them to do in the future, and that gap is widening. So how do we narrow that gap? Professional development, non-degree training like the University of the Aftermarket is certainly a valuable resource, but academic programs could also be applied to that need. Do you have an employee that has not ever taken a degreed program, gotten their associate's degree, gotten their bachelor's degree. They can get an associate's degree from Northwood in 2 years online. They can get a bachelor's degree entirely online from Northwood in 4 years. You can get prior life experience for your job that you're currently doing from your life experience and apply that to academic credit so you can have fewer classes that you have to take. Maybe that's an employee that you want to send back to get SAP certification. We have any SAP certification that you could possibly want. Maybe it's an employee that you want to groom as a new leader. They could come through our Automotive and Mobility MBA, an MBA that is exclusively for professionals in motor vehicle, commercial vehicle, aftermarket, automotive, OEM, anything to do with mobility and automotive and commercial vehicles. It's an exclusive MBA for them. So that could certainly develop your employees. A quick story: we have a current student finishing her MBA right now from us, who works for an aftermarket parts supplier. They're more on the performance side. They would be more in the SEMA world. But she was telling us recently about some of the classwork that she was doing that was helping her prepare business plans for her business. And she was showing it to the owner of her company, who was saying, wow, that's exactly what we needed for you to have. We would like more employees to consider that because it's driving your career performance, your job performance, because you're making business plans in class, where essentially you're going to class and doing work that is applicable to our industry. So those are the types of things that we want to talk with organizations about. How can we partner with you to provide you the training, either academically or non-degreed custom programs that will help narrow that gap between where your workforce is today and where you want them to be.
Right. Well, and I want to piggyback on that because I think it speaks to some of the other programs you have. You had mentioned Leadership 2.0 already. It's very workshoppy too, getting in there, solving problems, making connections. Give me a quick overview of Leadership 2.0 and what you go through with those folks.
Leadership 2.0 is a 2-week. 1 week is in the fall in August, 1 week is in the spring in March. It's a 2-week program, and it is very much focused on tactical leadership. How are you going to get better results this year than last year? Now, we do talk a lot about different leadership styles and leadership tactics. How are you going to align your team together to get better results? But you are with peers in the industry from every level of the supply chain, talking about industry issues. You are, as you mentioned, creating lifelong friendships. I went through in 2013 and 2014. The folks that were in my class are people that I still stay in touch with, that are coming back to me saying, hey, I need you to come do training at my organization for my younger folks, or who are on my advisory council, or who are partnering with us in other ways. And so you develop those lifelong friendships. But one of the things that we do is wrestle with industry topics. And we're going to be doing, we have our March session coming up here in a few weeks. And we are developing a current case study right now on First Brands Group. Mm-hmm. And I hate to mention specific names, but that is a big topic of conversation in the industry. And so we are going to be talking case studies on First Brands Group, and everybody in the industry is going to be impacted by that, and they can all share their perspective. So if you're a shop, you're hearing what the suppliers are saying about this. You're hearing what distributors and program groups are saying about this, what their pain points are. If you're a supplier, you're hearing directly from the shop owners, what their pain points are, what they think about all this, how you can be better. And we take those industry topics and we discuss them and get more in depth so that we can learn, how are we as an organization going to change and improve this year? And you take all of that viewpoints from all those different segments, and then you can apply it to your own business. You better understand your channel partners. You better understand dynamics that you may not have thought about before. But the end goal is that you're coming out as a better leader than you did when you walked in. Now, I'll point out one other thing about Leadership 2.0. It was instrumental in my own life, and I feel very privileged to be able to work at the University Aftermarket now. But it is without fail that between weeks 1 and week 2, that a really high number of our attendees get a job promotion between the weeks, or take on new roles, or take on new responsibilities, or take on additional projects, or have work successes in their career. Now, I'm not going to claim that it's all because of Leadership 2.0, but I'm also not going to deny that the program itself does have impact on the folks that go through it, and does have a way to prepare them for new things and help them take next steps in their career and with their organizations.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you mentioned the workshop you're going to put on here in a couple of weeks. You don't get more real world than that, because lots of questions still swirling around that and lots of implications, and very interesting approach to the workshop. As you're developing and working with those people, and you mentioned their growth, but are there any common gaps in leadership that you see in the aftermarket, or anything in that nature that you see these people grow into?
Often you'll see in the research this plays out as well. Often people who take that first leadership role, they may be really good at their current job. Their skill sets are applied to being an individual contributor, but taking that leadership step where now they're leading folks, that's not a skill set we often train people for. We get them preparing and improving upon that skill set that we need to execute on a daily opportunity, but preparing them for those leadership, how to lead people. And so first time leaders often struggle right out of the gate. And it takes some time to get used to that new role. Part of what we're trying to accomplish is helping people see before they get to those roles exactly what would be required of them, help them develop some skills so that they are better preparing. We talk a lot about what is mission critical in your role. And can you define that? What is your organization's mission? What's your team's mission? What's your contribution to that mission? What are the skills that you need to accomplish that? What is it that you need your team to accomplish? How do you align their skills with that mission so that you can focus on the core things that that derive value for your organization? There's so much to that, and it does take concerted, intentional effort to train, to build skills. You know, we see with organizations right now, the time pressures and the financial pressures are real. 2025 was a chaotic year, and a lot of folks had to be present every day in their position to manage the chaos. And there were financial pressures that came with that. We need to help people. We need to help develop their leadership. We need to coach them, help them practice their leadership skills, help them mentor. Leadership is not a individualized activity. It's a people activity. It's not a technical skill that's done in isolation. It's a skill that's in and with and through people. So it's so important for organizations to invest in their team when they want to move them along into more leadership and more responsibility, that they're thinking about it in terms of it's a people game, not an individual isolated skill. Often because of the time pressure and financial pressure, we'll see organizations who will assign online learning to their team. And that's completely valuable and helpful. And I can say that I've benefited from online training that I have done. But if that's the sole training that you give to develop leadership, you're going to miss that people side of it. Yes, I could watch a class online. I could take an assessment, but that's done in isolation, and it's a people business. It requires intentionality. It requires practice with people. None of us are perfect. We all are able to grow into those skills, but we have to do it with and around people. And so seeing organizations that invest in their folks to come and participate in leadership training is so helpful versus the temptation just to assign some curriculum to them and let them do it on their own.
Yeah. Do you see any standout benefits? I'm sure you have companies that are kind of repeat attendees that show up to Aftermarket 101, that show up to Leadership 2.0. Do you see any long-lasting benefits in their continuing participation? That from that company investment point of view.
As I've mentioned, we between week 1 and 2 of Leadership 2.0 always have a really high percentage of people who have taken new career paths, new opportunities, new challenges, new projects. And so we do see that investment pay off that way. When I look back at my own class, um, the positions that they are now in leading in the industry is remarkable. But, I go back to some of the surveys I mentioned earlier. Organizations, according to LinkedIn Learning, in their reports, organizations that have strong career development programs are 42% more likely to be front runners in generative AI adoption compared to those without. Uh, Having a conversation with an industry executive end of last week, they were saying about a program that they went to recently and how it changed their thinking on AI. They thought that they were thinking well and preparing their organization, but the event that they went to changed their mindset and changed how they were leading to be more progressive in their adoption of AI. So we see that not just in that regard, but in lots of regards. There's always, according to Gallup, there's employees who feel like they have strong opportunities in growth, take on new opportunities, and have improvement in productivity. So there's a number of ways that it benefits people, not just in their abilities to lead, but also in their interest in staying with an organization. If you want to retain employees, you want them to feel valued. You want them to feel like they have opportunity. You want them to feel like they're not stuck doing the same thing forever, that there's opportunity for them to grow and learn. And it's not always about title or money. Often it's just about opportunity. Hey, I would like a new project to sink my teeth into, or I would like to learn something new, or I'd like to feel like I'm progressing in my skills. So there's lots and lots of benefits to doing this, and well documented in the research.
Very good, James. Let's say I'm an aftermarket company and I love what I'm hearing now. Where can I learn more about all these programs?
You can contact me directly. My email is Odell, Jodellj at northwood.edu. We also have a website. It's universityoftheaftermarket.com, but you can find out more there. You can find out more through the industry associations and the program distribution groups. We work with all of them, and especially the associations who are strategic partners in the University of the Aftermarket, and you'll see us out and around. But contact me anytime and check us out on the website.
Well, James, I appreciate you taking the time to educate me. I'm sure I'll talk to you again very soon.
Thank you.